Hello, Southside. Thank you so much for joining us again on another awesome service. We are still in our Heroes Who Can Help Us series. We got one more for you. God himself, our awesome hero, man who made all the other heroes possible, who was with all of these other characters that we've talked about. So excited to worship with you. We've got a fun song for you, a special song that Colin actually requested. So powerful, talking about this God, Elohim, this God that we can trust, that has been around for eternity, that picked the Israelites, that picked Abraham and chose them to be his people. And now, because of that, he has opened it up for all of us to be his people. And so we hope this song blesses you, and we're excited to do it. I stand upon the solid
rock of faith in Christ.
This steadfast hope shall not
break apart within the trial.
I am assured his promises will never fail.
As long as life remains, he is faithful.
God is patient, God is kind. He does not envy, he does not boast. His ways are higher than my own. His thoughts consume the great unknown. Of this alone I am sure, my God is love. I draw my breath under
his created windswept sky.
I know my hope shall last
long after my flesh retires.
From dusk until the dawn he calls his children home.
His righteous love outlasts generations.
God is patient, God is kind. He does not envy, he does not boast. His ways are higher than my own. His thoughts consume the great unknown. Of this alone I am sure, my God is love. He is Almighty God, Elohim, maker of the earth. He is the Lord of hosts, heaven's King, God of endless worth. His kingdom stands above every power, every living soul. His love is like the sun, ever true, shining over all. He is Almighty God, Elohim, maker of the earth. He is the Lord of hosts, heaven's King, God of endless worth. His kingdom stands above every power, every living soul. His love is like the sun, ever true, shining over God is patient, God is kind. He does not envy, he does not boast. His ways are higher than my own.
clouds consume the great unknown. Of this alone I am sure, my God is love.
Hey there, Southside. You know, as we've worked through this series on heroes who can help us, maybe you've noticed what I've noticed, which is this really interesting tendency in the whole of the Bible, really, and in all of these stories, that as great as these heroes are, they're not really the point of the stories that they're taking place in. The point of those stories is usually not to direct us toward this human being, but actually to direct us through that human being toward the amazing heroic God that they all serve. And so that's what I kind of want to look at today as we close out this series on this Labor Day weekend. I really do want us to look close at the God who is the heroic God behind all these heroes who can help us. You see, God is the ultimate hero. He's the hero of the whole Bible. And what we're going to see today in Exodus chapter 3 is just who is that God that is this heroic God throughout the whole Bible. How does he describe himself? What does he call himself? That's what we'll see in Exodus chapter 3. So at this point in the Bible story, at the book of Exodus, the people of Israel, who are this people that God has called and chosen to use in order to bless the world and reveal himself to the world, they find themselves enslaved in Egypt. And they're serving this horrible, terrible tyrant, Pharaoh, who is not only forcing them to work, but he's also denying their day of rest and worship on the Sabbath, and he's even trying to control their population by ordering the execution of every firstborn baby boy of the Israelites. And so this guy, he is terrible. The Israelites find themselves in a really bad way. And one day, an Israelite named Moses, who's out in the desert, he's a shepherd out in the desert, he happens upon a really interesting thing. He sees this bush that's on fire, but it's not burning up. And so he sees this thing, it's really interesting. It looks like it's on fire, but the bush doesn't seem to be actually burning. And so he goes, he turns aside, and he says, I'm gonna go figure out what this is. And God speaks to him through the bush. And so Moses, this guy, has this conversation with God through the burning bush. That's what we see in Exodus chapter 3. Follow along with me. It says, Then the Lord said, I have surely seen the affliction of my people who are in Egypt, and have heard their cry because of their taskmasters. I know their sufferings, and I have come down to deliver them out of the hand of the Egyptians, and to bring them up out of that land to a good and broad land, a land flowing with milk and honey. And now, behold, the cry of the people of Israel has come to me, and I have also seen the oppression with which the Egyptians oppress them. Come, I will send you to Pharaoh, that you may bring my people, the children of Israel, out of Egypt. But Moses said to God, Who am I that I should go to Pharaoh and bring the children of Israel out of Egypt? He said, But I will be with you, and this shall be the sign for you that I have sent you. When you have brought the people out of Egypt, you shall serve God on this mountain. Then Moses said to God, If I come to the people of Israel and say to them, The God of your fathers has sent me to you, and they ask me, What is his name? What shall I say to them? And God said to Moses, I am who I am. And he said, Say this to the people of Israel, I am has sent me to you. God also said to Moses, Say this to the people of Israel, The Lord, the God of your fathers, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob has sent me to you. This is my name forever, and thus I am to be remembered throughout all generations. And so here it is. This is the moment in the Bible where God, who has been active all through the book of Genesis, actually reveals what his name is, what he wants his people to call him. And it's really powerful. The name of God, the personal name that he wants us to call him, is right here in this passage. And it's the first thing we see. Our God is Yahweh. His name is Yahweh. And you may say, well, I didn't see Yahweh in that passage. So let me unpack this a little bit for you. Look at verse 13, first of all. It says, Then Moses said to God, If I come to the people of Israel and say to them, The God, that's the Hebrew word Elohim, of your fathers, the Elohim of your fathers has sent me to you, and they ask me, What is his name? What shall I say to them? And so you see the word God there, Elohim, is just a general title. It basically works the same way as our English word God does. Sometimes they used the word God or the word Elohim to refer to the God, but also the word Elohim was just the title God. And so it could be used for pagan gods or gods that didn't even exist. It could also even in the Hebrew usage be used for spiritual beings like angels and demons. And so Moses here knows he's speaking to an Elohim. He knows he's speaking to a God, but he doesn't know which God. And that's basically what he's asking. He's saying, I know you're a God because you're speaking to me through this amazing burning bush experience, but which God are you? Look at how God answers him in verse 14. It says, God said to Moses, I am who I am. And he said, say this to the people of Israel, I am has sent me to you. So God gives a very interesting answer here. I am who I am. Moses wants to know God's name. And first of all, God answers him saying, I am who I am, which that phrase can also be translated a couple different ways. I will be what I will be, or I cause to be what I cause to be. Maybe the best translation, because Hebrew's weird. It doesn't have all these different tenses that we have in English. The best way to translate this could just be, I be what I be. So simple what God is saying here. You want to know who I am? I am who I am. And then he goes on, verse 15. God also said to Moses, say this to the people of Israel, Yahweh, the God of your fathers, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob, has sent me to you. This is my name forever. Yahweh, this is my name forever. And thus I am to be remembered throughout all generations. And so now God gives Moses actually a different name to call him. Before he says, I am who I am, now he says Yahweh, and Yahweh means he is. So where he said, I am who I am, now he says, Moses, you don't call me I am, only I call me I am, you call me he is. In other words, he's drawing Moses' attention to this phrase, I am who I am, or he is who he is. That's who our God is, Yahweh. But here's the thing. You might have noticed if you're following along in your own Bible that the word Yahweh actually probably doesn't happen in the Bible you're reading. The word that it has there is probably the Lord, with Lord in all caps. You see, in the Jewish faith, God's name is so holy and it's so special that they never speak it out loud. Back then this was true, even today this is true, that as they read the Bible, when they come across the name of God, Yahweh, they don't say it out loud, they substitute it with the word Adonai, which means Lord. And so our English Bible translators have actually taken that tradition and carried it along into your English Bible so that when they're translating each Hebrew word, when they come to the name Yahweh, they don't just write out Yahweh, they put in the Lord with Lord in all caps. And so it's kind of this interesting thing. As you read your Old Testament, when you come across that, you can substitute in your mind, oh, that's not a title, the Lord, that's his personal name, Yahweh. He is, I am. And so, great. Lots of good Bible info, lots of, fun facts to impress your friends. But why does it actually matter that that's God's name? What is he trying to show us by giving himself that name for us to call him Yahweh? He is, I am. Why should we care? Well, here's a couple reasons. First of all, Yahweh means no beginning or no end. It also means he needs nothing and everything needs him. You see, if God is, he is, I am, if he is Yahweh, that means he always has been, he always will be, and it also means that he doesn't depend on anything or anyone else to be in existence. He is the one who exists apart from everything else, and nothing else can exist apart from him. God is who he is. That's what it means. That's part of what Yahweh means. God didn't have a beginning. He won't have an end. He doesn't need anything in order to be. He just is. But here's another thing that really makes it more personal and more practical for us. Yahweh means that God is perfectly and reliably himself. He is perfectly and reliably himself. For God to be Yahweh means he is never anything other than himself. And it means that whatever he is perfectly that thing. Okay, I know. That is way too much. That's some word salad. Let's unpack that a little bit. Let me break this down. If I describe myself as loving, if I say, I'm Colin and I am a loving person, what I really mean when I say that is that I am sometimes loving. Because the truth is, even if I call myself that, there's going to come a time throughout my day when I am not loving, when I do something that is not loving. And so it means, at best, it means I'm sometimes loving if I say that. Also, what I really mean if I say I'm loving is that I'm relatively loving. I'm not the most loving person in the world. I'm also not the least loving person in the world. So maybe I'm more on the loving side of things. That's what it means, but you're going to find someone more loving than me. God's not like that. You see, when God says of himself that he is loving, it doesn't mean that he's sometimes loving. It doesn't mean that he's relatively loving. When God says he's loving, it means he is perfectly and reliably loving. And he's reliably perfectly loving, and he's perfectly reliably loving. God never fails to show love in anything that he does, and his love is the standard of love. He is perfectly loving. No one is more loving than him. He defines what love is in himself, and he never fails. He never does anything that is outside of love. He is perfectly, reliably loving. And that's, by the way, when in 1 John it says God is love, that's why it says God is love and not God is loving. He's perfect and reliable love. And so if that's the case, if that's what Yahweh means, that whatever God is, he is perfectly and reliably that, then we can also look at this passage and see, well, what is God perfectly and reliably? What does he say that he is? Who does he say that he is? How does he say that he operates in this world? We see that in this text as well. First thing we see is that Yahweh takes note of lowly people. He notices them. Look at verse 7. Yahweh said, I have surely seen the affliction of my people who are in Egypt, and have heard their cry because of their taskmasters. I know their sufferings. Notice that Yahweh has seen and heard, and he knows the suffering of his people. In other words, we could just say Yahweh notices when people are in pain, when they are broken, when they are suffering. He is a God who takes note of those who are forgotten and disregarded. But that's not all. He's also a God who takes note of the mighty people who cause the suffering, oftentimes of the lowly people that he takes note of. Look at verse 9. It says, Now behold, the cry of the people of Israel has come to me, and I have also seen the oppression with which the Egyptians oppress them. And so Yahweh doesn't only notice the people who are lowly, but he notices the people who afflict and oppress and take advantage of and harm and load up burdens on the lowly. Yahweh is a God who notices those who are afflicting the weak and the helpless. He sees them. He's a God who takes note of those who abuse others. And then another thing we see in this passage is not only that he notices both of those people, the lowly and the mighty who abuse the lowly, but finally that Yahweh sides with the lowly against the mighty. Look at verse 8. He says, I have come down to deliver them, the Israelites, out of the hand of the Egyptians, and to bring them out of that land to a good and broad land, a land flowing with milk and honey. And so here in verse 8, we see the plan of God for the lowly Israelites, the slaves in Egypt, the ones who are having their firstborns slaughtered, and the ones who are having their backs whipped, and who are being killed and murdered just for the sake of the Egyptians' own wealth and prosperity. He says, my plan for you is to deliver you from them. I am on your side. I'm going to protect you and take you away from that. And I'm going to take you to a good and broad and plentiful land that's just for you. Notice how different this is. I mean, think about everything that you know, which may not be a lot, but you know enough to know that all of the gods of ancient Egypt and all of the pagan gods in the world at that time, they're not gods of the lowly people. Those are the gods who are unequivocally and pretty much every time allied with the people in power, the human beings who are in power. This is so predictable in the ancient world that so often the king of a country, of a people, would also himself be seen as a god. You see, Yahweh is so different. Yahweh reveals himself in that world as a God who says, no, I'm not always in favor of the person who's in power. I'm the God of the people who are oppressed. I'm the God of the people who are pushed down and broken, who have their backs beaten, who have their backs broken by labor. I am their God, and I take up their cause. I am their champion. There's one other thing Yahweh says about himself in this passage, and this is really what I want us to see. It's that Yahweh is present with the lowly. He's not only in favor of them, he doesn't only take note of them, but he himself, that God Yahweh, is present with the people who are pushed down and broken and forgotten. Look at verse 10 again. He says to Moses, Yahweh says to Moses, "Come, I will send you to Pharaoh, that you may bring my people, the children of Israel, out of Egypt." But Moses said to God, "Who am I, that I should go to Pharaoh and bring the children of Israel out of Egypt?" And then God says to him, "But I will be with you." You see, Moses here, he knows he's not worthy and he's not up to the task of leading this nation out of slavery in the most powerful nation in the world. He says, I don't want to do this. I know I can't do this. Who am I to do this? And, you know, in our world so full of self-confidence and self-esteem, we might expect God to say, Moses, you are just so wonderful. You can do this. You are a strong guy. You're educated. You're smart. You're powerful. You got great charisma. You can do this, brother. Go out there and get him. Go stand before Pharaoh. But he doesn't say any of that. Yahweh says to Moses, with deafening silence, nothing about Moses. He just says, I'll be with you. I will be with you. And by the way, that I will and I will be with you is the same phrase in Hebrew as I am, as in I am who I am. Yahweh, in other words, Yahweh is who he is, and he is with those who are lowly and oppressed, those who plead their case before the people with power who are abusing and hurting them. Yahweh is a God who is always and reliably present personally with the people who are lowly and broken and hurting and abused. Yahweh is present with the lowly. That's the message that we see in Exodus 3. But I want to tell you, it's also the message of the entire Bible. It's the story of the Bible that Yahweh is present with the lowly. Think about the Old Testament. Think about all these stories we've looked at over these past few weeks. Yahweh was with David, little shepherd boy David, as he faced the giant Goliath. Yahweh was with Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego as they were thrown into the fiery furnace by an evil and wicked and angry king. Yahweh was with Jonah when he repented inside the belly of the fish. When he humbled himself and made himself small, Yahweh was with him. Yahweh was with Daniel all through the night as he was thrown into the lion's den by a prideful king who wanted everyone to bow down to him. Predictably, every time Yahweh is with the lowly, he's not with the mighty. Yahweh is with the broken, he's not with the strong. You will not find in the entire Old Testament a story where Yahweh chooses the side of the prideful and powerful people. He always shows up as the God of the weak and powerless. And let me tell you, the God of the Old Testament gets some bad press as a vengeful and mean God who punishes sinners, who beats down people who don't know any better. It's not true. God in the Old Testament as well as the New Testament is on the side of the people who are broken in spirit and broken in body. He is the champion of the weak and powerless. He is not the plaything of the powerful and prideful rulers. But it's also the story of the New Testament. I want to draw your attention to a story that you probably heard before from John chapter 8. This is really an incredible story. The religious leaders in John chapter 8, also known as the Pharisees, which when you say that in the church, everybody goes, ooh, the Pharisees. That's right, the Pharisees, they're trying to entrap Jesus, which was always what they're trying to do. But in John chapter 8, they are in rare form. They are trying to entrap Jesus, to make him look bad, to find some charge they can bring against him so they can get rid of him. And so what they do is they bring him a woman who's been caught cheating on her husband, and they're going to stone her. They say, that's the law, Jesus. So here we go. We're going to stone her. What are you going to do about it? It's the law. You're going to tell me you're not in favor of the law. And so Jesus does this incredible thing. He looks around at all these evil, prideful, religious people, and he says, okay, great. So we're going to stone her. And I had an idea. Why don't we have the person who is sinless start the stoning? You get to cast the first stone. How much fun is that? And so he sits there and he waits and looks around the room. And it says in the scripture that every single one of those people drops their stone, and walks away because they realize, I'm not sinless. I can't cast the first stone. And so this woman, then Jesus forgives her of her sin, tells her to go forward and sin no more. And this absolutely enrages the Pharisees. They are beside themselves at this display from Jesus. And they confront him and they basically ask him, what gives you the right? Who gives you the authority to forgive the sins of someone like that? And Jesus says back to them pretty simply, he just says, it's on my Father's authority. And they don't know what he's talking about. They don't think of God, Yahweh, as his father. And so they think, okay, so your father, your dad tells you can do that. Well, check this out, Jesus. Our father is Abraham, the founder, the patriarch of our faith, the one who founded the Jewish faith, the man of God, the man of faith, the one who has the covenant with God. That's our father. And it's by his authority that we do what we do. And then Jesus says back to them, okay, and this is really actually hilarious. He says, look, I personally know Abraham, and Abraham is actually really thrilled. He's full of joy. He rejoices when he sees me doing what I'm doing. And this is just like absurd. The Pharisees are like, look, Jesus, Abraham died like 2,000 years ago, and you're trying to tell us that you know him and that you had a conversation with him, that he sees you and he knows what you're doing. And Jesus says this thing in John 8:58. He says, look, truly, truly, I say to you, before Abraham was, I am. Before Abraham was, I am. Now you see, Jesus isn't just claiming here to have existed in ancient history. I mean, that's part of what he's saying. He's the eternal Son of God. He is God in the flesh. And so before Abraham was, he was. But why doesn't he just say that? Before Abraham was, I was. Or I was there when Abraham did this. But what he says is, before Abraham was, I am. Jesus here saying, I am, is appropriating the name Yahweh. He is, I am for himself. And just in case there's any confusion about whether he actually meant that, the Pharisees know clearly that that's what he's saying. Because the Pharisees, when they hear him say that, it says they pick up stones to execute him for blasphemy, because they know he is claiming not just to be God, but to be their God, Yahweh, the God of the Jewish people and the God of the universe. Jesus, let me just recap this. Jesus sided with the lowly woman caught in adultery. He forgave her sin. He sided with her over the mighty religious leaders, the Pharisees. And the Pharisees ask him, where do you get the authority? And his answer to them is, I am. I am Yahweh. He claims the name of Yahweh as his authority, which, by the way, is the same way that Yahweh reveals himself to Moses, as the God who is with the people who are lowly, the people who are beaten down, the people who are whipped and abused. Yahweh is with them, and Jesus says, I am with the lowly as well, because I am Yahweh. Before Abraham was, I am. This is the story of the Bible. It's the story of Jesus, and it's the story of our lives as well. As Christ followers, we know all too well that when we are at our very worst in life, we are most available to God, because Yahweh is with the lowly people. And I want to talk to you right now. Maybe you're facing a specific struggle in your life. Maybe it's a financial hardship or a broken relationship or a health issue. Maybe you have wayward children. Maybe you have something coming from all of this madness that we're experiencing in our culture. There's got to be something that you're going through, and I want you to know that your pain is not a sign that God has left you. It's not caused by God forsaking you or punishing you or being mad at you, but actually, when you are suffering, when you are in pain, when you are broken down, Yahweh God is with you. He sees you, he hears you, he knows your pain, and he's there with you. That's what Exodus tells us, and that's what Jesus tells us, and that's the story of our lives as Christians. But I also want to talk to us as a church body today. These past 6 or so months have been really hard. They have not been easy for any of us, and some of us have had it worse than others. Some people are suffering a whole lot worse than others. But this hasn't been easy for any of us. This has been a hard time. And lately I've been hearing more and more from church people, more and more from Christians, that they just can't wait to get back to normal. And sometimes really forcefully, we need to get back to normal. We have to get back to normal. It's time to get back to normal. And I just want to speak to that and say, of course, we all feel that way. Of course, we all want to get back to normal, but is it possible that in rushing back to comfort, to the familiar, to what we're used to, we might actually be rushing away from an experience God wants us to have with Him? If it's true that Yahweh is present with the lowly people, why are we so eager to get away from those things that are humbling us in this moment? Why are we so quick to run from Him? As I was thinking about, how do we think about this? How do I explain and illustrate this? One of the things that came to mind is, you may know, recently Rachel and I had a baby, and her name, well, Rachel had the baby, and now we both have a baby together. The thing is, this baby, I've noticed, cries a lot. And it's not that I didn't expect that, but she does cry. She doesn't cry more than other babies, but she does cry, and she cries, and she's a baby. And so I've noticed, though, sometimes she cries because she's got a dirty diaper, sometimes she cries because her pacifier fell out, sometimes she cries because she's hungry, and sometimes she cries just because she wants to be picked up. And I've figured out that when you've tried everything else and she's still crying, it just means you just have to pick her up and calm her down. Here's what I've noticed, though. When I go and pick up Rosie, she's crying, she's in the bassinet, I pick her up, and I kind of hold her here against me, and I kind of bounce her around. She doesn't stop crying immediately, even though I'm pretty sure that's all she wanted was to be picked up, and I picked her up. She keeps crying for a little while. She's still mad. Sometimes she cries just because I think she's been crying, and she's bored, and she forgot what it's like to not cry. And so I'm there, and I'm trying to get her to calm down, and I'm trying to get her to say, hey, I'm here, I got you, Rosie, I'm here, Daddy's got you. And eventually, she'll calm down. Eventually, she'll stop crying. Sometimes she'll look up at my face just to make sure I am who, she thinks I am. Sometimes she'll, feel my warmth, I think, or hear my heartbeat, and she'll eventually calm down, lay her head on my chest, and usually she goes to sleep. And we get to have that really special moment where I'm holding her and she feels safe, and she knows me, and she's with me, and she's calm, and she can just go to sleep. I think sometimes that's what it's like to be a Christian facing a difficult time, is that we cry out to God, we cry out, we just want Him to come back. We say, God, where are you in this? Where have you gone? Why have you forsaken me? God, can you just come here? Can you lift me up? Can you show me your presence? Can you give me some sign that you're with me? And we cry out to Him, and we cry out to Him, and sometimes we don't realize He's already picked us up. Southside, is it possible in the midst of the COVID-19 pandemic that maybe we've been crying out to God and saying, can we get back to normal? Can we get some relief? Can we get some familiarity? God, can you just show up? Can you help us out? Can you get rid of this thing? Can you show us that you're with us? And yet God is holding us this entire time. That He heard us cry, that Yahweh came to be with us as He heard us cry. He picked us up, He held us, and yet we're still thrashing around. We're still looking around. We're asking, where are you? Where are you? When all we need to do is to look at His face, to feel His warmth, to recognize His voice, and to lay our heads on His chest. Yahweh is with the lowly, just as He was with the Israelites who were enslaved, just as He was with Moses as he stood before Pharaoh, as He was with all these people who were broken down and abused and hurting. He is with you now in the midst of this trial, if you will just take the moment to know He's there, to seek His presence, and to rest in Him.
just what to do.